Okay, welcome everyone to October's planning meeting. It is moved by Councillor Strength, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that the council agenda as presented on October 28th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Please vote. That carries. Thank you. Councillor, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? Councillor Hunter?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I'd like to declare on number 3, ZA 29-2025 Cameron, Peninsula Road.
Okay, thank you. All right, we did not have a closed session today. I will go over to Councillor Hunter for land acknowledgement statement, please.
Thank you. We would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the First Peoples who for thousands of years before us were and are still the keepers and caretakers of this land where we now live and work, and in particular the Chippewas of Rama, Wata, Mohawk First Nations, and the Moon River Métis. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We recognize all the generations of Indigenous people and their historic connection to this place, and we are grateful for the opportunity to gather here at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I'll note that Councillor Varney and Councillor Cairns are unable to join us today. This afternoon, there are 4 public meetings scheduled for 3 zoning bylaw amendments, 1 Shore Road closure application, application number ZA08-2024 for Seeped, application number ZA2825 for Ryder, application number ZA29-2024 for Cameron, application number Shore Road Closure 04-2022 for Adler. The Planning Act requires that a public meeting be held before council decides to pass a zoning bylaw amendment or close a road allowance. The public meeting serves 2 purposes. First, to present to council and the public the details and background to the proposal, and second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a council decision is made. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the public meeting. The manager of Planning Services, Adam Ager, will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of public meeting was circulated. Staff will then advise of the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning amendment and provide any additional information that is relevant to the application. Staff will further summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the applicant will be requested to make a presentation, followed by questions or presentations from the public, either in favor or against the proposal. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, staff, or anyone giving presentations. The proposed zoning bylaw amendments and road closing will then be considered by council later this afternoon. If anyone from the public in the council chambers would like to request notification of any decision of any application, please complete the form provided on the table at the back. I will now ask the manager of Planning Services to advise how and when and to whom notice of the public meetings were circulated. Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of the public meetings concerning the proposed zoning bylaw amendments were sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 400 feet of the property subject to the proposed bylaw, and emailed to applicable agencies. Included within the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal, a site plan, and a key map showing the location of the property in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13. The public notices concerning the proposed Shore Road allowance closure were advertised on the news and notices page on the town's website for 2 consecutive weeks prior to this afternoon's meeting. Included with the Shore Road allowance closure public notice was a legal description of the lands affected and the date of consideration by council. The circulation concerning the proposed Shore Road allowance closure were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Act 2001, Chapter M25, and the town's procedural bylaw.
Thank you. It is important to note that should council pass any bylaws this afternoon, there is a 20-day appeal period during which time the applicant, the municipality, and certain public bodies as defined by the Planning Act may appeal the decision of council. During this appeal period, no building permit may be issued or other work commenced. Also, in the event there is an appeal and in order to keep advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal, members of the public must request and be sent a copy of council's decision on the application. And just to, before we get started into public meeting number 1, I did say earlier that I didn't think Councillor Varney was be joining us, so she has arrived, just in case you're listening in for the record. So, public meeting number 1, I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA08-2025 for SEEP. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application.
Thank you, Your Worship. Subject property is located on Morrison Lake. The property is designated waterfront area in the Town of Gravenhurst official plan and is zoned residential waterfront RW6. The property is currently developed with a detached dwelling, which includes a sunroom and an attached open deck, a sleeping cabin within the shoreline area, 2 docks, and 3 accessory storage buildings which are intended to be removed. The property is relatively level, sloping downwards gently towards the shoreline, then more steeply at the immediate shoreline. The property is generally well vegetated along the side lot lines and at the rear portion, with some existing mature trees also existing within the shoreline area. The southern area of the shoreline also consists of an identified portion of the Morrison Lake provincially significant wetland. A majority of the shoreline area is currently occupied by the existing dwelling, decking, sleeping cabin, and a limestone patio, which was more recently constructed between 2013 to 2018 based on aerial photography available, and the patio does not appear to have received any approvals from the town. And this is the current air photo, and then this is just back to 2013 just for council's information. So sometime between 2013 and here in 2023, you can now see that there's been an improvement to the limestone patio surrounding the dwelling. The application before you this afternoon was a zoning bylaw amendment in order to permit the construction of a 2-story garage with an upper story sleeping cabin. The proposal also includes removing the 3 accessory structures previously mentioned and converting an existing sleeping cabin into a shoreline storage building. Also, it is to recognize the location of an existing patio and dock, and the following relief is required from the zoning bylaw. Permit a maximum lot coverage of 16.6% within 60 meters of the optimal summer water level, where 13% is permitted. Permit a minimum side lot line of 3 meters for a 2-story detached garage with an upper story sleeping cabin, where 6 meters is permitted. Permit a shoreline development area of 141.7 square meters, where 138 square meters is permitted. Permit a dock setback at 4.8 meters from the environmental protection zone, where 10 meters is required. And permit a minimum shoreline buffer of 45% within 20 meters of the optimal summer water level, where 75% is required. And I'll flip through both of these as I explain the application in more detail. In addition to the submission before you, in support of the application, a planning justification report was received, a scoped environmental impact study, as well as an addendum to that study. So originally, a study was done to assess the development of the proposed garage, which is back here in its proximity to the provincially significant wetland, which is on screen here, denoted by the dashed or dotted shaded area. In addition to that, though, an addendum was done to also assess the impacts of the stone patio, which surrounds the dwelling and its proximity to the provincially significant wetland, as well as mentioned, there was also an additional dock that was previously on the property. You can see here the wetland isn't on this original sketch, and through working with planning staff, the dock's now being relocated, pushed further in away from that wetland feature. Sorry, just back here. So I just wanted to provide that context as well. Also on screen here, you're seeing the existing sleeping cabin, which is to be converted to a shoreline storage building, And then the applicant's agent has also provided these green areas of shading that denote possible areas for replanting. So as I just mentioned, the original environmental impact study was to assess the impacts of the garage to the adjacent provincially significant wetland. The report concluded that there would be no negative impacts through the implementation of mitigation measures. However, it did speak to new plantings and opportunities to revegetate with 5 new saplings and 7 new shrubs, with each tree being removed. The addendum report was further provided to assess the dock and the patio adjacent to the wetland. The report determined that the existing stone patio ensures water will permeate between the stones and that the shoreline remains stable, and concluded that the patio and existing dock locations are not expected to result in negative impacts to the significant wetland. Really, the crux of the matter before council this afternoon, as detailed in the staff report, is the shoreline development area. It doesn't result from any new structures that's being proposed. The application that's before you today is to permit the construction of a new garage. However, in doing that, you're seeing a number of other zoning deficiencies that are now present and evident on site through the construction of that stone patio. In saying that, the non-conforming sleeping cabin into a storage shed, it's also worth noting the additional massing on the property will be visible from the shoreline, even with the additional plantings, because the stone patio does dominate the shoreline. So as detailed in the staff report, staff are not supportive of the zoning bylaw amendment application before you today in its current form, mostly as it relates to the shoreline buffer area, and are of the opinion that there are opportunities for improvements that could be made to lessen the impacts. And in saying that, here are the impacts. Moving on to site photos. So this is the view from the dock in its current location. You'll note from the original site plan, there are additional areas that lead down to the lake right now. It's our understanding that with the reconfiguration of the docks, one of those landings might not be required. However, there's no information that's been provided to date on if the stone patio will come out or not. This is showing the existing sleeping cabin in the shoreline area that's proposed to be used as a shoreline storage building. And then you can see the extent of the patio there just to the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Moving west, these are the 3 existing storage buildings that are to be removed. And then this area is looking west to where the garage is to be constructed. The applicants also indicated that the purpose of the garage will be able to house a lot of what you're seeing on screen there, so it'll be cleaning up the property. And then this area looks west of where the garage is proposed. It's relatively flat. This area represents a space that's beyond 60 meters, and technically a garage could be built here, and the lot coverage provisions wouldn't then need to be amended. However, that still does not alleviate the concern regarding the shoreline buffer area that's before council. With respect to the agency comments, the chief building official had no objections, but did indicate that a demolition permit is going to be required for a garage and shed. A change of use permit is going to be required for converting the bunkie to a shed, and a building permit will be required for the new garage, which must be built to the Ontario Building Code requirements. The deputy treasurer, no objections. The infrastructure technologist, no objections, but requested an entrance permit be obtained prior to the issuance of a building permit, as there's not an entrance permit on file for the property. Deputy fire chief, no objections, subject to Ontario Fire Code and Building Code requirements. And the District of Muskoka, no objections, provided that the appropriate development control techniques are able to be implemented, and that would be the recommendations from both the original EIS and the addendum. As detailed in the staff report, it's staff's opinion that the application does not conform to the official plan, is not appropriate, and does not represent good planning, and as a result, staff are recommending that the application be denied. However, in saying that, staff did receive information from the applicant's agent that they may be requesting deferral today, so I would look for further comment on that from the applicant's agent. In addition to that, as I'm seeing here on screen now, we've also just received comment from a neighboring property owner objecting to the application in its current form. It's my understanding that's all been distributed to council via email as of 3 o'clock. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eggert. I will now ask for comments by the applicant or their agent if they're here.
Do I need to press this? Or are we good? All right, perfect. My name is Savas Feradas of Plan Muskoka. My mailing address is P.O. Box 5384, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H 2K7. I'm here this afternoon representing the applicants as their agent and as a registered professional planner on this matter. I've had a chance to review staff's report. I understand the recommendation for denial. We are here requesting a deferral on this application, and we're hoping to hear from council on that matter. We're basically looking for the deferral to get an opportunity to have one more, I guess, round of revisions to the proposed site plan that would maybe address some of the concerns made by staff. I was thinking about just basically giving you guys a background on the proposal to date. We started working on the file in September 2024. We filed the application in February 2025. The original application was for a proposed garage, and it seeks to consolidate 3 other existing structures together into one. It's located approximately 36 meters from the shoreline behind the existing dwelling and located in an existing clearing that avoids rock. It requires an overall lot coverage of 16.6% within 60 meters of the shoreline. The overall coverage is 11.6%. It also requires the 3-meter side yard as well. A wetland evaluation was prepared and as staff had mentioned, was submitted in support of the application. It was prepared due to the presence of PSWs in the area. After the application was filed, complications arose. Property contained 2 docks that had no records of permits, and these are removable pole docks and a floating dock. Also, the stone patio that staff has mentioned was discovered as well. The process took a turn at this point, and the focus became on the shoreline area of the property. I really do feel for the applicants in this matter. These types of structures normally get missed when it comes to permitting. Removable docks are a common problem, same with patios that require no permit for installation. So there was an attempt to rectify the problem by the applicants. They've prepared an addendum to the EIS to review the shoreline area of the property. They removed one of the 2 docks, the pole dock in this case. They have committed to relocate the floating dock outside of the EP area and away from it as well. They've converted portions of the parking area within 20 meters to natural vegetation, or committed to convert. They also sought to enhance the existing grassed area with native plantings as well. All this was to attempt to bring the shoreline area more into conformance with the official plan, and to seek basically to bring the focus back onto the proposed garage, which was the intent of the application to begin with. The shoreline buffer is a difficult matter to become complying when it comes to undersized lots. Regular amenity areas encompass more shoreline buffer permissions on undersized lots. In this case, the dwelling is fully inside the shoreline buffer area. It counts as an amenity permission. If the dwelling, for instance, was not included in the shoreline buffer calculation, this shoreline buffer would go from approximately 45%, which is proposed, to about 63%. So it would actually improve dramatically with basically just the removal of the dwelling, which is a legal non-complying structure and permitted to be there. All this is simply to say that there's been attempts to rectify the shoreline issue, and as staff has mentioned, it really has become the focus of this application. We're trying to return the focus back to the original matter, being the proposed garage. So we respectfully request that there's a deferral on this matter be considered by council here today. I'm hopeful that the applicants and the staff can reach an agreement, and we respectfully request this deferral. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Kim Seipt, the landowner, is also here today, and would like to provide a presentation on this matter as well too. Thank you.
Okay, great. Come on up.
just wanted to help to bring context to what it is that we were faced with on the property structure, so that you can understand why the application was made to put the garage where it is on these documents. Now, there's a couple of pictures. Let me just grab them for you. These were today, so that's why I wanted to bring them up for you. It's a little bit easier to see the property without all the leaves on, because it does shadow it and give, not a lot of context to the size and the space. So this is the driveway from the property looking out to the road. And then this is the open space that already exists, and this is where the application has been put before you to propose putting the garage structure on the already existing open space. Sorry, it's a little bit, there we go. So at the front of the property, where it would fall within the boundaries that we previously would have been allowed to build this garage, there's that existing set of trees, and there's actually some shield that's below that space. So it would require some blasting and opening up even more treed area than what is already open on the property. So for us, it made a lot less impact to the environment to propose it here, utilizing an already existing spot that has compacted ground where there's vehicles that have parked there previously, and then the entrance would just flow off of the road and into that spot, so not upsetting a lot of what the road frontage looks like already. A lot of this was already here when we bought the property, so we're working within what we already had when we took ownership of it. So as you can see, looking down at the property towards the water, the garage will clean up a lot of the incidental buildings that are used to store things right now. And given the winter that we had last winter, we are also going to feel a lot more confident that things are not going to be damaged in the process. So that just gives a little bit of context to it. The reason for the adjacent to the other property, or closer to that, the property beside us, to which the neighbor is in support of moving it that way. There's already an existing driveway down to the other building that's on there. So if we have to move the garage over, we're actually going to be having to encroach further over on the other side of the property to build a driveway to get down to that second building. And so, again, it would cause a lot more impact to the environment that exists there right now. So I just wanted to open it up for any questions that you might have. And there are a couple of other pictures here, but and I took pictures of the existing buildings that, like I said, will be coming down and replacing that. And that's, again, the looking out, so that the forest on the left, and it's elevated. They say it's fairly level, but there's actually an elevation there with some shield underneath of it. And as you can see at the waterfront as well, there's the shield in the water, and so the environmentally protected area that they identified on that, on the, I guess, the report that was in question about where the dock would be, or it already was, that it was questionable that it was an environmentally sensitive area, but there isn't actually any vegetation other than a few lily pads that exist in the water today, and that's because there's shield under there. They can't actually plant into the ground section of the water. And if you need to see a picture of that, I've got that here as well. Let me just get that for you. This is one side, and that you can see the shield actually goes into the water. The water is actually supposed to be up where that stonework is there. In fact, for the last 7-8 years, the water in the spring is up at that stone level. And you can see the receding that's happened in this past year has been quite extensive. On this side is the environmentally sensitive area where the dock was existing, and this is all shield that's sitting on the base of the water in that zone. So that's why we brought the biologist in to do the assessment of whether it is actually an environmentally sensitive area, and it was deemed not to be. However, we have to go through a process to have that removed from M&R, but we are working within what the request of the town has been to mitigate the issues within the existing waterfront area in order to be able to move forward with the garage. So hopefully that provides some context to what we've been working with and trying to identify how we can improve, and definitely looking for town's support in helping us to rectify this so we can move forward. Do you have any questions for me?
We'll save questions to the end,
Okay.
once everyone's had an opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none. Council, are there any questions for the applicant, manager of planning services, or persons who have made presentation? Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the stone patio, the comment from Mr. Veranis was that you don't need a permit to put in a patio, but can you speak, I guess could staff speak to how that relates to the coverage of the first 20 meters or whatever? Thank you.
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Jorgensen. Thanks for the question. That's correct. So typically a stone patio wouldn't require you to get a building permit, but just because you don't need to get a building permit doesn't mean you don't need other approvals from the municipality. So we still have site plan control in effect, and we still have our site alteration bylaw. So you cannot alter the grade, change, fill, cut trees, or tree cutting permit bylaw within 60 meters of the water without getting the appropriate approvals to do so. In saying that, that's where our opportunity to catch that we wouldn't be maintaining our shoreline buffer, which is then in the zoning bylaw. We'd see that someone's looking to put in a stone patio. Let's just use a different property as an example. If this didn't happen after the fact, you would come in, apply to put in a stone patio through a site alteration permit. It would go through our site plan and zoning coordinator. They would take a review and see that we're no longer maintaining our shoreline buffer of 75%, and you wouldn't be eligible to get the permit. You wouldn't be compliant with the zoning bylaw. You'd be coming here and asking for permission to do so before that approval was granted. Herein lies, unfortunately, the permit was put in at some point, or the patio was put in at some point, and now we have a situation where we're severely deficient on our shoreline buffer, and as you saw from the photos too, it's very close to the water, so it's not as if there's opportunity to plant in front of the patio really and mitigate that impact. What you're seeing there right from the water's edge is the stone patio. But in answer to your question, just because you don't need a building permit doesn't mean you don't need other approvals from the municipality.
Councillor Morphy?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the applicant or their planner. Staff is suggesting, denial. What does a deferral look like to you? What are you going to come back with to make this worth our while, to change it from denying the application possibly to deferring it? What do you see your vision of the shoreline becoming?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm not 100% sure exactly what it's going to look like. I think we're going to look at additional areas for plantings, something that maybe the ecologist can chime in on as well, prepare a planting plan, something that would be a little more substance than just identifying an area to be replanted. We're also going to be looking for opportunities for basically like a visual buffer sort of from the planting perspective. So that there is 2 areas in front of the patio that may very well be able to be sort of staked with plantings that are shoreline sensitive. I think something like that, or maybe even the removal or like the alteration of the bunkie that's to be converted to a shed on the property as well, who has a deck on the front. I know there's been suggestions from staff for the removal of that deck or the alteration of that deck. Those types of matters. Basically what we're looking for is just one more conversation to have with staff to come up with some sort of plan that they feel confident that they could be more supportive of and that we can move forward with. There's been many iterations up to this point. This is just the last of it, basically, is what I'm asking for.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll go back to Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, just a subsequent. So is the removal of stone patio a possibility, or they're fighting to keep that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Murphy. The stone patio was put in actually to mitigate quite a significant upheaval of the area in front of the cottage, because there is very little space between the cottage and the waterfront, and the foot traffic between the water and the cottage was significant to the point where there was no grass or vegetation left. So, and in the middle of that section was actually a mound that is shielded, and so there was a point to it, and there was a fire pit there. So we felt it necessary to protect the surrounding trees from potential fire. There was actually a fire over on the island that somebody had a fire pit in the ground with some stones, which was there when we bought the property, similar to what happened on the island. And the fire actually went down and into the roots of the tree and went across and burnt the tree, and that's how there was a fire on the island. So we wanted to mitigate those issues. We have 3 young children, so we put the stone patio in as a safety protection and to clean up that area. We'd prefer not to have to remove the stonework. We actually did it ourselves physically. We didn't hire anybody to do it, but it was put there to mitigate those issues. So I prefer not to remove it, and we'd like to work with the town to find a resolution around that. But obviously, that's a worst case scenario if we're to have to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Strength?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the applicant. I'm sorry that you've gone back to your seat. Can I just ask, is this a new property for you, or have you been established there for a while?
No, it's a new property for us. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor, are there any other questions for anyone presented? Counselor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, a question for staff. So if the staff recommendation is for denial, and given the situation with the shoreline buffer, the 75% is what's required. With the denial, then, is there any opportunity to improve that? I mean, what tools do we have to require more of a shoreline buffer if this application is denied?
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Jorgensen. Council would be, pretty aware that staff don't enjoy or typically bring forward reports for denial. We typically do our best to work with the applicants and their agents diligently to come to a place where we can bring forward something that's supportive for you all to consider. It's my understanding that, and you heard from Mr. Veratis as well, that there's been a variety of different iterations of what's before you today, and it's significantly improved, and we're aware of that. However, it was our understanding that this was sort of the final end product, and given what was still in front of us, we're still in a position with 45% shoreline buffer available not to recommend approval. In saying that, being willing or hearing that a deferral is what's being requested, if there is opportunities to explore other opportunities and improve the shoreline buffer, we're open to that. The stone patio represents 21% of that 75% area. So it is a significant portion. There are other options, and that's also the most dominant feature in front of the cottage. There's also the question around the second landing going down to the water now that one's dock's being removed. Again, these are conversations that we're happy to have and continue to have with the applicant and their agent on looking to improve the situation and bring forward something that's more palatable. Understanding the fact that there are legal non-conforming structures that are occupying that 20 meters where 75% might not be the reality of what's going to be achieved on this property, but it's our opinion that more than 45% can be achieved. So that's why we're recommending the denial.
Counselor Jorgensen?
Just to follow up on that, though, but if the application were denied, what tools are available to staff to further enhance compliance with that 75% or closer to that 75%? If the application is not before us, are there tools that allow an improvement or require an improvement or whatever?
Mr. Egger?
Through you, certainly then the municipality at that point would have to resort to, matters like enforcing the site plan agreement, using bylaw enforcement, non-compliance with the zoning bylaw. So our bylaw services division would be issuing a letter that we're aware that you're not in compliance with the zoning bylaw, and offer a time frame for you to be brought into compliance. And again, understanding the fact that there might not be full compliance to get to that 75% number, so it's coming up with what's the best compromise in this situation, knowing that we might not get to 75%, but it is confidently knowing that 45% is not that number.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so I'm just going to make a comment. I think that the stone patio, we always hear stone patios don't count as coverage, but I think that the message coming out of this should be stone patios may not count as coverage, but they count. So I've always thought that stone patios don't count as lot coverage. So unfortunately, this is a lesson that's being taught. This is not how we want to learn that lesson. Okay, so with that, just for the public, those of you who haven't been here before, what happens is Mr. Egger will make a recommendation, and council will discuss it at the bylaw stage. So council will, again, in case you haven't been here before. So Mr. Egger, are there recommendations or comments to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Thank you, Your Worship. As detailed in the staff report, staff were recommending that the application as submitted and put before you, recommended that that be denied, but also understanding that the applicant's seeking a deferral in a place of further working with staff, and if that's the wish of council, staff would be amenable to that, understanding that the shoreline buffer would have to improve to the furthest extent possible.
Okay, the bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 28-2025 for Ryder. I will now ask the manager of planning services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Mr. Egger?
Your Worship, the subject property is located on Loon Lake. The property is designated waterfront area in the Town of Gravenhurst official plan and is zoned residential waterfront, RW6D. Existing structures on the property include a dwelling which is currently being built, a garage, and a sauna near the water, and 2 docks. The property is level and there are no terrain constraints that were observed. However, a drainage ditch running from Loon Lake Road through the property was observed. You can even see it on the aerial photograph here, traversing through the property all the way to Loon Lake Road. And it was observed at the time of the site visit that that's actually been rerouted to accommodate the placement of a new septic bed at the rear of the property. The areas of the property that are not being occupied by structures are parking areas or septic areas, are well vegetated with mixed vegetation and include canopy of mature trees and a healthy understory. Rising from the lake is a gently sloping bedrock shoreline. And then moving on to the application itself. The application was submitted in order to permit the placement of a prefabricated geodesic dome on top of a deck to be used as a sleeping cabin. And the sleeping cabin would require the following relief from the zoning bylaw: to be set back a minimum 20 meters from the water, being Loon Lake, where 30 meters is required. have a maximum floor area of 50 square meters, and have a maximum height of 6 meters to the top of the dome. As detailed in the staff report, while staff do not have significant concerns with the size and height of the proposed structure on its own, the proposed reduced setback increases the potential impact of both the size and height. Given that there are no on-site limitations preventing the structure from being set back farther, especially given the site alteration that has occurred, including the relocation of the drainage ditch to accommodate the garage, parking areas, and proposed septic bed, staff cannot support the proposed 20-meter setback from the lake for a new sleeping cabin. It's also worth noting, regardless of what decision is made on the zoning amendment application, it will be necessary for the applicants to update their existing site plan agreement with the town to reflect the current site conditions. The chief building official provided comments on the application that the proposed structure will require a building permit and will require a professional engineer design, and it will need to meet Ontario Building Code requirements, including but not limited to setbacks to overhead hydro lines and spatial separation to the property lines, additional septic capacity. The infrastructure technologist outlined concerns that the proposed location of the sleeping cabin and deck will be in conflict with the existing drainage course running through the portion of the property, and that confirmation of the location of the existing drainage course needs to be provided in an updated site plan drawing showing the drainage course and the proposed sleeping cabin offset. Fire and Emergency Services had no objections subject to Ontario Fire Code and Building Code requirements. Deputy Treasurer and the District of Muskoka had no objections. In addition to those comments, 8 letters of support were received from residents of Loon Lake, including the president of the Loon Lake Association, who's the adjacent neighbor. All those comments were forwarded to council for their consideration. An updated site plan was provided, which shows the existing situation now and what's being proposed, as well as the rerouting of the drainage course. So the drainage course wasn't originally shown on the first plan at the time of the staff report, and since then a new plan has been provided, so it shows the expanded bed location, septic bed location here at the top end of the property. And it also shows the rerouting of that feature. However, it's my understanding that is not to the satisfaction of the infrastructure department. You can also see the routing of it in this iteration goes directly under, this is the proposed sleeping cabin or geodesic dome, and the deck that it would be situated on 20 meters from the water. And as previously noted, staff are not aware of any other constraints on the property that would require this to be set at 20 meters instead of the 30-meter requirement. And here, just for scale, this is what the dome was being proposed. It's also our understanding that through the applicant's agent that the applicant's now not looking for this type of design and perhaps a more traditional design, but I'll defer to the applicant's agent on that. This was just included for reference as it makes more sense of what was included in the staff report, just for your information. And then this would be an elevation of how the height would have been calculated for what was being proposed. And then you can see the bedrock slope, a deck out to the top of bedrock, and then the shoreline off to the left-hand side. This is then looking for site photos. And just to orient you, that first photo is standing on this dock down here. So I just want you to keep that in mind. There we go. So this is the dwelling and deck under construction, and a view, sorry, this is jumping ahead on me. Okay. So this is the view of the dwelling and deck under construction from that dock. This is the view from the existing dock looking north towards the cottage and the deck that's currently under construction. You can see here the gently sloping bedrock and the mature trees as previously discussed. This is then a view from the shore looking at the proposed sleeping cabin site. I'd also just keep in mind the red canoe you see there. This is then standing from that vantage point looking back, seeing the dock that was being stood on to take those previous photos, and then this would be the top of the bedrock just beyond that would be where the proposed sleeping cabin was being located. This is a view from that previous dock, just looking at the shoreline to the neighboring properties. You can also see its mature trees and natural vegetation all the way down to the shoreline. This is then the subject site of the proposed sleeping cabin. Tree clearing would need to occur in order to permit the construction of that sleeping cabin. This is then a view from that sleeping cabin to the cottage and deck that are currently under construction. Again, you can see the mature tree growth. This is a view then from the proposed sleeping cabin site southwest towards the lake. And then looking back into the site, you can see the existing garage from that vantage point as well. It's also worth noting in this photo, what was observed is level flat terrain and no real obstacles that would impede the placement of a sleeping cabin at the required 30-meter setback, as the same amount of tree removal would be required in what the location that's being proposed or further back at the appropriate setback. This is the existing garage and parking area. This is the site preparation that was observed for the septic field. Then the drainage course, you can see the original outlet pipe there, and it was observed that it's now been rerouted to move closer to the property line. But again, no details have been provided at the exact location of how and why that rerouting did occur. Conveniently enough, staff have been to the area and actually had a photo of this drainage course from a different a site visit. So here's what it looks like when the water is flowing. So this would be from that pipe in a straight line directly down into Loon Lake. And then in the springtime, you can see that water actually collects off to the left-hand side of your screen there and flows directly into the lake. So as detailed in the staff report, staff's opinion that the proposed 20-meter setback does not conform to the official plan, is not appropriate, and does not recommend or does not represent good planning. As a result, staff are recommending that the application be deferred to allow the applicant the opportunity to revise the proposed location of the sleeping cabin to be in conformity with the official plan, and further to provide details as it relates to the location of the existing drainage course and what's been rerouted, and needs to be provided on an updated site plan drawing showing that drainage course in relation to the proposed sleeping cabin offset as required by the town's infrastructure department. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. I'll now ask for any comments by the applicant or their agent.
Good afternoon, Savas Veranis again, Plan Muskoka. I don't have a lot to add to this application at this point in time. The applicants have read the staff report, and so have I. We've understand what the concerns of staff is and the requests for additional information that's been requested of us. We've already started in motion the exercise, I guess I could say, of revising the plan to meet some of those concerns. The applicants have proposed, as mentioned by staff, to abandon the dome idea and look for a more traditional bunkie design. Understandably, that has to occur in order to demonstrate that to council. There's been some requests made in terms of designing and providing additional information about the drainage course that's shown on the property, and we understand what our jobs are there in terms of providing some stormwater flows and stormwater design, I believe is what Infrastructure's comment said. And prepare that all into a new package for submission to staff for reconsideration on the matter. So we concur with staff's recommendation for deferral, and we hope to come back with something that is understandably more in line with their concerns and hopefully garner their support for the next application. I am joined by the landowners behind me here as well too, who would like to speak on the matter as well too. Thank you.
Great. Come on up.
So I'm new to the process. Good afternoon, Your Worship, Mayor Lorenz, members of council. My name is Mike Ryder, and I'm here today with my wife Sigrid. And we cottage at 50 Loon Lake Road and plan someday on making it our full-time home. We're agreeing to the deferral for a small accessory structure that Savis has kindly described, and that otherwise conforms with all bylaws and building codes. That's our intent. We want to do that. I also want to acknowledge that the town's planning staff have a challenging role, balancing competing interests and priorities across the community. Thank you. And from our perspective as homeowners and novices to this process, it can also be difficult to navigate and fully understand each step. And through that experience that we are having, we've developed a real appreciation for the thoughtful work that goes into these decisions. I'd like to share that we're not developers or home flippers. I've been part of cottaging since the age of 6, where my parents had a 16 by 20 cabin on Kinesis Lake in Halliburton. We had electricity, a wood stove, an outhouse, but no running water, other than my brother and I racing to the lake with 2 buckets. We had a sauna, and yes, we cut holes in the lake in the winter and jumped in. Equally, Sigrid had a property on 12 Mile Bay, on Georgian Bay, and has also enjoyed nature and the cottage life. Of note, we've owned cottages on Turtle and Loon Lake for 9 years. We continue to admire the beauty of this region. And now we're a family who has poured a great deal of care, time, and attention into the family cottage we're building. Our goal has always been to create something that's beautiful, lasting, and respectful of the Muskoka landscape. We have a large and growing family. We have 5 kids between the age of 25 and 30. Some are married, some engaged, and hopefully someday some grandkids. Of note, one requires a wheelchair to be accessible full-time. So this accessory structure and its placement simply provides a practical and accessible way for us to enjoy the property together. It allows us to gather comfortably while ensuring everyone, regardless of mobility, can fully experience the lake and its surroundings. I also want to confirm for the record that we have set aside the idea of a geodesic dome. We learned that that was an issue yesterday. Instead, we will build a traditional Muskoka-style bunkie designed to complement both our main cottage and the surrounding natural environment. The materials, the color palette, and the overall design are in keeping with Muskoka's architectural character. Of note, our cottage that's being built, and you saw a few pictures, has black window frames, black wood siding, and a black steel roof to blend into the environment. No red roofs. And you've seen the pictures, but if you'd like to see the same that were shown, I'll pass them around. To continue, we've also listened carefully to our neighbors and the broader lake community. As of today, as noted, we have 8 families who have written letters of support, as well as we have the support of the Loon and Turtle Cottage Association, whose president, Dan Miller, is here with us today. Please note that Dan came proactively, as we did not ask him to attend. Thanks for coming, Dan. I think you might want to say a few words, but I'll leave that to you. And finally, there are no known objections from any neighbor. The supporters that we've spoken with and have written to you note that the structure is a modest, well-screened, and will be consistent with the character of the area, with no traffic, noise, or servicing impacts. To quote many, their plan, referring to Mike and Sigrid, their plan will enhance, not detract from the beauty and enjoyment of our lake community. We're also committed to collaborating with the town on road drainage improvements. And I just want to share a couple of pictures of what we attempted to do, but I guess as novices, this was the before picture of the drainage. I know you saw the winter one, but that's the way it looks in the fall. Quite overgrown. And then what we've done partially for the first 60 feet to improve the drainage in our minds. But anyways, we're committed to collaborating with the town on drainage improvements and to ensure that any work on our property supports the overall infrastructure and neighboring properties. This commitment remains unchanged from the beginning of when we started this project. And finally, I'd like to emphasize that Sigrid and I take great pride in being good stewards of our property, our shoreline, and strive to be respectful neighbors. We sincerely appreciate your time and hope that we can come to a common resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trust you'll be around for questions when we get to that portion. Okay, great. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this application? I think you were put on the spot there, Mr. Miller, weren't you? Come on up. I didn't recognize you without a barbecue spatula in your hand.
So a few things I'll say. That speaking on behalf of the association, our mandate is all about environment and safety. Those are the two things that we strive to get everybody to maintain, of all the cottage and full-time and seasonal cottage owners. So I can say, having also lived right beside this project the whole time it's gone on, that certainly, and I'm no expert in any of this, so I don't pretend to be, but I know that they've abided by all the permits and got all the required planning and everything done that they needed to do, and persevered trying to build it in 12 feet of snow all winter last year, and I don't think I can see anything that, I mean, this is a question now with this new bunkie, and I know that needs to be sorted out. But as far as being respectful neighbors, they certainly are, and I would say the way they're doing things is being done properly. So again, speaking as a non-expert, not technical, and not having the abilities to know about all the measurements and setbacks and all that, they certainly, and they and their builder have just worked diligently to try and do it right. So if anybody has any other questions for me about it, feel free to ask, but that's about all I can say.
Great, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions from members of the public today?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Bill Wheeler from 53 Loon Lake Road, just a few doors down. I have no concerns about the buildings. My only concern was the waterway. It's been there, we've been on that property for 60 years. This waterway really flows in the springtime. Unfortunately, they've already dug up part of that waterway. My concern is silt going into the lake because the base of the stream has been disrupted. So I'm hoping that either a berm may be put at the lake at the beginning of, in the springtime to stop any silt runoff into the lake because it's been destroyed. I think the area near the lake hasn't been touched, only the first 60 feet near the roadway. But still, the waterway would carry that silt down to the lake. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this application? Did you want to answer the question or the comment? Did you want to address the comment? Yes, you may.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Bill, for coming and expressing your concerns. So again, it's our intent to actually improve things rather than disprove or make them worse. So if you noted the before picture of the said drainage ditch, it was overgrown. It hadn't been maintained in 60 years. So we thought with a little bit of encouragement to get this drainage ditch moving properly, it would prevent flooding back on our property as well as neighboring properties, because we don't have a picture of that in the springtime, but I can assure you that half of our property is flooded because of the excess water. So again, we're committed to working with the town, with the planning staff to rectify a solution that works for everyone. It's our intent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no one else in the public, I'll ask council, are there any questions for anyone who has made a presentation today? Okay. All right, so with that, Mr. Egger, are there any recommendations or comments you'd like to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Your worship, as detailed in the staff report, staff would recommend the application be deferred.
Pardon me, the bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. Moving along, public meeting number 3. I now declare this portion of the public meeting to be a public, I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 29-2025 for Cameron. I will now ask the manager of planning services to please summarize the purpose, and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Also note that Councillor Hunter declared a pecuniary interest and has left the room. Manager Egger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Subject property is located on Peninsula Road. Property is designated rural area in the town of Gravenhurst official plan and is currently zoned residential rural, RR5, and environmental protection in part. The property appears to be similar to a corner lot given its frontage on Peninsula Road, which wraps around it to the southwest. The property is well vegetated and relatively flat on the north end, with the majority of the area consisting of the wetland and central watercourse moving south, and you can kind of clearly see that feature here on screen. In addition to that, the property includes a detached dwelling and two-story garage that is used for storage. What's being proposed before you today is the construction of a second garage, and that location of the second garage is to the north on a flat area between a steep sloped area and the existing wetland. It is accessed from it will be accessed or proposed to be accessed from a second driveway on the north end of the property that has received an approved entrance permit. So as detailed, the application was submitted in order to permit two-story garages with a maximum height of 6 meters, where one two-story garage with a maximum of height of 6 meters is currently permitted. In support of the application, a scoped environmental impact study was also prepared by Riverstone Environmental to address the environmental protection zone and the wetland feature that was observed there. They've gone and also mapped the water course, identified buffer areas, which you're seeing on screen, and then a suitable building envelope for the proposed garage. The environmental impact study assessed impacts to identify natural heritage features on the property, the water course and its contributions to fish habitat, a wetland, and potential habitat for threatened and endangered species. The report concluded that the proposal can be accomplished without negative impacts, subject to vegetation retention, management practices, and sediment control, and also increasing the buffer area. As a result, the proposed amending zoning bylaws reflective to include that buffer in the EP zone. In addition to that, staff are also recommending that a provision be included into the amending zoning bylaw to impose site plan control for the proposed development. This would require that a site plan agreement application be approved prior to the issuance of a building permit, which is intended to implement the recommendations of the environmental impact study. Staff are recommending that site plan control applies to development within 30 meters of the environmental protection zone in accordance with the area of influence for wetlands established by the official plan. Without this condition, the recommendations of the environmental impact study could not currently be implemented or enforced. With respect to agency comments, the chief building official Deputy Treasurer and Infrastructure Technologist had no objections to the proposed application. Deputy Fire Chief, no objections, subject to Ontario Fire Code and Building Code compliance. And the District of Muskoka, no objections, provided that the appropriate development control techniques are used to implement the recommendations from the environmental impact study. And again, just to reiterate, that's what the additional provision included in the amending zoning bylaw for site plan control is going to be used for, to ensure that those are actually going to be enforced and incorporated. Moving on to site photos, this is looking west into the property from the main entrance to the south, showing the existing dwelling and the two-story garage that's used for storage. You can note the development is well separated from the street. This is then moving west into the property. This looks west, north towards the location of the second proposed garage from the primary development area. You can also note in this photo there's a dense vegetative buffer and there's steep slopes downwards that separate the development envelope. So you're not able to access the other development area from the current driveway. That's why they got the entrance approval for the second driveway. This is moving north and looking south. This is the second driveway entrance providing access to the proposed building envelope. This driveway, as previously mentioned, has received entrance approval from the town. This is moving south and looking west. This shows the proposed development envelope. You can note the steep slopes and vegetation on the left where the existing development is located. So again, that's the topographical constraint why you can't access one from the other. You can see that steep significant slope on the left-hand side of your screen. This is then looking north into the wetland complex adjacent to the development. As previously noted in this presentation, it has been evaluated and the appropriate buffer is recommended in the amending zoning bylaw, as well as the appropriate development control techniques. And finally, this is looking east towards the driveway and the road from the proposed garage area, just outlining that it will be well buffered from the traveled portion of the road. As detailed in the staff report, it's staff's opinion the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the official plan, is appropriate and represents good planning. As a result, staff are recommending the application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay. Is the applicant or the applicant's agent here? Great, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Bobby Leppington of Design by Bobby, 190 Taylor Road, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 1J9. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for today. Through you, Madam Chair, thank you to planning staff for their help and assistance in this application. When we started this application, we were looking for a second garage with an increased height of 20 feet to allow the secondary suite above, which required a scoped environmental impact report due to the location of the wetland. The wetland is actually larger than what is showing on the town mapping, and hence the bylaw has been, our request for bylaw has been amended to include a setback to that wetland. Through you, Madam Chair, I'm wondering if we could bring the site plan back up on screen. Thank you. And I just wanted to point out the 20-meter setback buffer from the watercourse is shown in the dark orange lines, the 20-meter setback from the watercourse, yep, and then further setback from the edge of the wetland to the dwelling is showing. So we've got some great buffers in there. The homeowner is a homeowner who has grown up in the area, has started his business and his life, and now he's finding himself with grown children, and we need a place to put them. The request for the second garage with secondary suite is to stay in the family, so that we have a family compound, if you will, with the dwelling and then the secondary suite above the garage. We're here to seek your support and answer any questions you may ask. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, are there any members of the public who'd like to speak to this application? Come on up. We just need your name and mailing address, please.
Alan Lowy, I'm the neighbor across the street at 1031 Peninsula Road. You mentioned earlier that neighbors were supposed to get notices of the zoning change, which I never received. I had to notice it on a small little pink note tacked to a tree on the Marks property. I don't have any objections per se to the application, but I do want to note that the construction of that second driveway removed a lot of coverage and trees that blocked the view of the property from the road. And I'm just wondering who's responsible for remediating that lost planting to insulate the road, because right now you drive down the road and it just looks terrible when you're driving by. The driveways, the secondary driveway is just follows the road and doesn't really look that pleasing. So if it's really the only issue that I wanted to bring up.
Okay, was replanting. Okay, so I am going to go to the agent to respond.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. Yes, through site plan control, we'll look at not only the requirements in the Riverstone Environmental Report to protect the wetland during construction, but I know that my client would be more than willing to look at plantings along the driveway in terms of trees or shrubs, if that would help. He's very open to being a good neighbor and wanting to make sure that what we've proposed is pleasing. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll go to Mr. Egger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just for follow-up to provide some commentary on the other part of the question too. This is case in point that the process does work. So not only are we required to circulate everyone within 120 meters, but the posting of that pink sign, so everyone was circulated within 120 meters. And then by seeing the pink sign, we're now having public participation attending the meeting. So just because you're not necessarily within the catchment area, potentially, you still are able to see the pink sign, come out and attend the public meeting, and that's why we post the pink sign. So we're happy that that's worked and it's got, you know, more interaction at our public meetings.
Okay, so I mean, we also recognize that there was a postal strike. I mean, we do, you know, I do want to reiterate that we do follow the requirements of the Planning Act for all circulations, and it's unfortunate that it got missed. I mean, there was a postal strike as well, so it's certainly not. If it didn't reach you, I'll have to agree with Manager Ager that the notice did tip you off and you were able to be here today. So I wouldn't be able to say where every piece of mail goes, but I can tell you every effort is made to reach all of the people within that 120 meters. So, okay. So with that, if there is no other members of the public, I will go to council. Councilor, are there any questions on this application? Okay. I see none. Mr. Egger, are there any recommendations you'd like to make to council at this time?
Your Worship, as detailed in the staff report, staff are recommending the application be approved.
Okay, the bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. I think we'll roll right into the next one, council. We've been at it. Okay, so public meeting number 4. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number Shore Road Closure 7/2024 for Adler. I will now ask for comments by the applicant or agent if they're attending in person. Okay, seeing none. Are there any questions from members of the public? Okay, seeing none. Council, any comments? Seeing none. I will now ask the Director of Development Services, Melissa Halford, if there are any recommendations or comments to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings. Director?
Sorry, thank you. Staff would recommend approval of the bylaws outlined in the staff report.
The bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. Okay, so that brings us to the end of that portion of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for keeping me on in order here. So moving along, we are going to go to new business. It is moved by Councillor Johnston, second by Councillor Jorgensen. Be it resolved that report number DEV 2025-73, Shore Road Closure 05-2025 for Cairns on Gull Lake be received for information, and that council hereby declare the following lands as surplus. Part of the original Shore Road Allowance, OSRA, in front of 35R 3926, Part 4 and Part 9 in the town of Gravenhurst, District Municipality of Muskoka, municipally known as 590 Phillip Street. Council, pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Please vote. That carries. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go into bylaws. I'll just give you a friendly reminder if you want to, Madam Clerk. So I'll just remind council, if you want to defer an item, it's, you need to pull the bylaw and we will discuss it separately. So I'm going to read them all. Bylaw number 2025-76 for zoning. SEP, Morrison Lake. Bylaw number 2025-77 zoning for Ryder at Loon Lake. Bylaw number 2025-78 zoning, Cameron Peninsula Road, which will be read separately for Councillor Hunter's benefit. And bylaw number 2025-79 Shore Road closure for Adler, Riley Lake. So I'm going to go straight to number 3, which was zoning for Cameron. Councillor Hunter, you will press your conflict button. And Madam Clerk. We're going to just deal with Cameron first, so we can move on from that. Okay, so we'll call the vote. Please vote on Cameron. And that carries. Thank you. Now, does anyone want to pull either for discussion? We got Councillor Morphy.
Number 2, Ryder, please.
Okay. Councillor Jorgensen. Okay, so we have 2. Oh, sorry, I didn't, could you repeat that, please? I didn't
sorry.
press your button.
Yes, number 1.
Okay.
Yes, number 1.
All right, so we'll go for number 1, Madam Clerk, do you want us to vote on the Shore Road closure? Does it matter? No, let's just do this. Okay, so we'll go to number 1. We'll just go in order, So, Councillor Jorgensen, you want to speak to number 1?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I think that it'd be prudent to defer this item. Do we have a motion to defer already? Yes? No? Do we need to make one? I'm going to speak to defer. I'd like a motion to defer.
Okay, so a motion to defer. Does he have a seconder to defer? Councillor Varney? Okay.
Don't worry about that one.
Okay, I was confused. I thought I didn't vote there.
Okay, so Councillor Jorgensen, you can speak to the deferral.
Thank you. Again, I think the point I was making that if this application were to be denied, then we lose some of our ability, I think, to mitigate what's there. And so I think there's an opportunity. I think there's other, the other ways to enforce compliance are much more onerous at this point. But at the end of the day, we were talking about the garage here. I still think there's perhaps some opportunity to discuss the garage further as well. But in this case, this is why I support a deferral of this one, so that we can look at improving the shoreline buffer area.
Okay, well, I'll go to Counselor Varney because she seconded the motion. Did you want to speak to the deferral or just? Okay. Counselor Strength to the deferral.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Manager Ager. What's the lesser of two evils? What's, if it's defer or deny?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Strength. I don't really have a crystal ball per se, but, to reiterate, planning staff work with applicants. We love working with applicants and agents to try to come to a place where we can bring forward a positive recommendation. And, if there's an opportunity to further that conversation, understanding that we've already, been working at this for a long period of time and we thought we were at the end, but if there's somewhere further to go, we're happy to explore that with them, understanding that currently what's in front of us isn't acceptable, but if there's an opportunity to improve that, that's an opportunity we would take the chance at.
Counselor Morphy to the deferral.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I would also look to support the deferral, but my fear is when applicants come to council to fix the wrongs that have been done. I hate that. And that stone patio is the wrong. And if they're going to come back with the stone patio there, we're going to have the same outcome and we're going in a circle. So I would support the deferral, but we better take a good look at that shoreline development being returned to a more natural state.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to the deferral? Okay, so I support the deferral. Obviously, we want to give people the opportunity to, improve the situation without forcing them to make another application. So, again, something that even us who think we know can be mistaken as to what is permitted and what isn't permitted. So, I think I will be supporting the deferral, and hopefully we can come up with something that's that can be supported by staff. And I do want to say I appreciate staff making the recommendation to defer. We know that sometimes it's a long way to the finish line and lots of conversations happen, but all in all, our staff and I think council really want to see people do what they want to do, but we do have to follow the rules and regulations. So unless there's anybody else who wants to speak to it, I will call question on the deferral. Okay, and the deferral's carried. So we will go to the next application. Councillor Morphy, you pulled that one?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. I won't be long. I think the writers are here. They're trying to do the right thing. They're going to go back, look at the plans, and submit something that is more acceptable. So I would support the deferral.
Okay, so I need a seconder for the deferral. Councillor Johnston? Okay, Councillor Johnston, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the application, or? Go ahead.
Just to prove that I do have a voice, yes, I support the deferral, because I agree with comments that you just made earlier, Your Worship. I'm not optimistic, for example, about that other one, but I do think that it's a good thing when the applicant says, I'm prepared to make changes, and staff are prepared to talk to them about that. I think it's incumbent on us to let that happen. So I support the deferral. Thank you.
Councillor Jorgensen on the deferral.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I support the deferral in this case. I think there is an opportunity, as Mr. Ager said, to perhaps relocate the bunkie in general still. I think there's an opportunity, but I'll say my biggest concern was the relocation of the watercourse, quite frankly. I think we've all seen evidence of when, you know, that especially in the spring and with, you know, the sudden freshet that comes, that often when you relocate the water course, the water has another idea and goes right back where it was. And I think we need to, as part of the deferral, I would like to see that issue in particular, even though it's not perhaps to deal with the bunkie. I think it's an important consideration on the property.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, again, I support the deferral. My main concern is the water as well, because, you know, we don't want to be responsible for approving something that gets flooded every spring, that's for sure. I mean, I think that's a possibility if we say, you know, let a little river run through your bunkie and then it floods. I think we have to be very careful of that. But the water for me is the big issue here, and you know, it sounds like we heard from the applicants that they want to address it. So Councillor Jorgensen, anything else?
Yes, I'd just like to add to the comment was made that, you know, the water's ponding and whatnot on the property. Well, that's actually sometimes a good thing, because it does slow down a water course before it does dump all the silt, as was mentioned, into the lake. So I think mitigation of the stream in general to try and slow it down is another aspect of that, so.
So I think staff and the applicant have heard where council, what direction council would like to see this head. So with that, if there's no other conversation on the deferral, I'll call the question on the deferral. All in favor? And that carries, thank you. Okay. And then we have one more to vote on, which is the Shore Road closure. Okay, any questions or comments on that? Or I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries, thank you. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, it is moved by Councillor Strength, second by Councillor Johnston. Be it resolved that the, I'm on, sorry. Be it resolved that the minutes of the council meeting dated September 23rd, 2025 be approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? Okay, please vote. It is moved by Councillor Johnston, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that the bylaw number 2025-78 to confirm the council meeting held on October 28, 2025 be passed. All in favor? Oh, Councillor Johnston, you have a question?
I love having my name sent, but that's not my name on there. It said Jorgensen.
Oh.
I don't want to be confused with him. It's already, people can tell us apart, already.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, JJ's.
I don't know what happened there, but does that change anybody's vote? Okay.
Yeah.
That carries, thank you. And I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Varney and Councillor Robinson, all in favor? Please vote.